Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Worst, a podcast where we review movie trilogies and decide which film is a scruffy looking nerf herder. Joining me today,
I am Luke Skywalker, and I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
They call me Old Ben, and you don't know the power of the podcast.
boys, it's Star Wars time. We're kicking off our trilogy of podcasts for a trilogy of trilogies. We're going to review all the Star Wars films in release order, kicking it off with the OT, the original trilogies. How good are these movies? I'm going to go first because I love these films so much. These are some of my favorite movies of all time. I have big memories of them from when I was a kid. I still appreciate them a lot today. Watch them regularly. Boys, how did you enjoy rewatching Star Wars?
Conan, I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't know. It's Star Wars is the kind of thing. It's almost impossible now to separate the films themselves from just the broader context, right? What they mean to you, the experience of watching them, how they've affected your idea of, I don't know, pop culture and just everything. They're in every facet of life, and they're really interesting. Like watching them again, I almost don't even feel like I'm watching a movie. It's like It's kind of like with Marvel. I'm participating in something much bigger than this, and it's like, on one hand, they're kind of sacred films, the original trilogy,
Yep.
because like these are the big dogs. These are the originals that define cinema for the next 50 years almost. But on one hand, it's almost like these films, I don't remember them that well. And I watch them and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I guess this is happening now. But it's because it's just so ingrained at the same time. And like Star Wars is more than just the story. It's the characters, it's the world, it's George Lucas, it's edits. Like, I don't know.
All the good and the bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
they still hold up for the most part. Like they're they're just great comfort films. I feel like you can watch this and they're always going to be entertaining. There's always going to be something you enjoy out of them. They're never a drag to watch, even though there's parts that might slow down a little bit. And I'm like, I've seen this 100 times. Okay, it's still like I can put this on the background and I will enjoy the experience.
Yep. No, so that's the thing. Like, I love Star Wars. I've always loved Star Wars. It was like growing up with the name Luke. I assumed my father was Darth Vader. Like all this time, I heard that line a lot. Like my dad uses that line a lot to me, and like I have legit looked into changing my middle name to Skywalker because I'm just like I want to be Luke Skywalker Morgan. It's just I've always loved these films. I think they're iconic. You can't separate what they did for sci-fi and what they did for all this sort of stuff in cinema. Um, we'll get into it when we talk about it later. I feel like some of them don't hold up, which I found interesting because as much as these are classic films, I feel like I haven't watched them that much. Like
Mm.
I feel like honestly, I probably went a good 15-year period in my life from when I'd first seen them and liked them and stuff before I watched them again as an adult, where to the point where there's so many scenes where I remember the Family Guy version of that scene, like because Family
Yeah,
Guy did
yeah,
one of all the movies, and I remember,
Yeah.
that's what they were ripping on in that Family Guy thing. Um, but Star Wars as a franchise, as a license, I love the shows. I love some of the new movies. And like when Force Awakens was coming out, I was super excited that Star Wars was back. Like it was a
Yeah.
big
yeah.
thing that I had to travel to a different state to go to gold class, and it was like this big event. I was so excited. I got goosebumps. So Star Wars always had a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Now, as you mentioned, Conan, there's been re-releases and edits and all sorts of horrible things done to these movies. Which did you guys watch it on Disney Plus this time? Did you watch the whatever the latest edit he's up to?
So I remember like months ago when we're trying to figure out when we should do this. I was like, I've got to buy is it the 2007 DVDs?
Something like so. I have them,
Yeah.
and they have an extra
You
disc that has the theatrical original cut on it.
Yeah, and I was like, I have to get those DVDs to watch the proper versions,
Yeah,
and I never did that, and then this came around, so I had to watch the Disney Plus ones. And man,
I
there are a lot of scenes where I'm like, that should not be in this film. Oh,
yeah,
that looks
wish I had
weird as
done that. I wish I'd done that because I feel like most of my gripes that I'll get into is unnecessary CGI characters that are added in way later. That I feel like there's certain ones that I feel like ruin characters, basically, and ruin.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a certain moment that's widely looked upon as ruining a character. I watched the Disney Plus version this time. I think this is the first time I've watched the full re-edit, or I don't know what he calls it, the re-release. Normally I watch the theatricals,
the ultimate
but
director's cut.
yeah.
No, it's not even that.
we'll
It's
get
not even a
into-
director's cut. It's the cut. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
He-
don't
he
sell the
sees
other
it as
cuts
war.
anymore. It's terrible.
That's what I mean. To find those DVDs, like they're on it. You have to find them on eBay, and sometimes they're $50, $60. Like
Yeah.
because we don't know when they're going to come out again, right?
I I feel like these films are like the perfect thing to point to as like a perfectionist who just can't let enough be and just like keep going back and fiddling with stuff and
Yeah.
just leave it alone, George. Stop it.
That's the
Like-
thing. The mythology around the creation of these films is, I think that plays a big role in why they're so sort of culturally significant. Is there is this thing of like people look at other films and it's like it's had the Star Wars treatment, and what they mean by that shorthand is they've been edited and changed and adulterated by all these different things, and everyone sort of knows George Lucas now. He's synonymous with this weird sort of guy who won't let this thing go, and who's maybe not a great director, but also made one of these biggest universes and butchered it later when he made more films. Like, and even just the story of how they originally got made and the reason why there's all these edits coming in because it was made on such a low budget and time restraints and stuff. Like, it's fascinating the amount of just one of the most fascinating like cultural artifacts of film history, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of nice in a way that we have them to look at and say, don't do this. It doesn't make the films better. But yeah, I guess we'll get into it as we come up. Do we want to start off with some stats?
Okay.
Stats.
Can I just ask?
Well, Luke's already done the dance.
All right. I'll do it later. It doesn't.
All right. Well, all right. So, box office. The original Star Wars, retroactively called A New Hope, made worldwide. Let's go with the worldwide total: $775 million. Empire Strikes Back, $547 million. Return of the Jedi, $475 million, which doesn't sound like a lot compared to some movies today, but they are they're in the top 200 odd of the all-time worldwide. I bet they were a lot higher at the time they were released. Widely considered some of the most successful films of all time.
Yeah.
I'm surprised New Hope is the most.
It was a phenomenon, and it got re-released several times in theaters.
Yeah,
that's what I want to say. Like, I feel like I wonder what those numbers are really meaning to, like when they end, because these films have been re-released how many times?
Yeah, you have to imagine that's all the times it was released, but I don't know.
Because I would I'd find that almost hard to believe. Like, I guess it's not accounting for like home release and stuff, which everyone sort of owns copies of these.
I know, like with Avatar, when they've done re-releases, it's added to their box office worldwide total.
Okay,
because that's what pipped them over Avengers again. Was they did another re-release and put them over them again for a bit.
If that's the case, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was like, yeah, those numbers are actually surprisingly low. I thought they would have been a lot higher.
No, adjusted for inflation, the North American total is $1.6 billion. So that's for A New Hope. That's for A New Hope only.
Now we're cooking.
So that's very high up there, right? Other films adjusted for inflation are 800 odd million, which is still very, very good. Critical response: A New Hope 90 on Metacritic, Empire Strikes Back 82, and Return of the Jedi 58. 58.
Crazy.
Wow.
I don't see films with a 58 Metascore.
I almost want to use the Rotten Tomatoes here because I like it better, but we won't go there.
Tomatoes?
It's 92, 94, and then 82.
That seems more accurate, almost.
That would be about my rating of them, I think, possibly.
I agree with two of them, and the third one I would agree with the Metacritic score. So,
but this is what I mean. These films can't be. You don't watch them just as a movie, because if you break it down and you literally just watch it as a standalone thing, you could get really bogged down on, oh, the effects aren't that good. Oh, some of the dialogue's clunky. Oh, Mark Hamill's acting's pretty stiff here. And you could I can see a lot of reasons why you look at one movie and be like, oh, that's actually not a good film. But these aren't movies. They're something entirely.
But I think a lot of that criticism, like those criticisms, could be applied to the first film, A New Hope, but it's the one that rates the highest. Like, I think people viewing it just as a film at the time were absolutely blown away, obviously.
Loved it, yeah. I don't know. Then it's a mystery.
I'm very surprised that, like, Metacritic wise at least, the Empire Strikes Back's not higher than that, because I thought it was the general consensus that Empire Strikes Back is easily the best. But I won't get into my spoilers for what I think is the best. But
Yeah,
I think it.
yeah.
I think it is. Metascore is always like a snapshot of history. So that's sort of everyone at the time, right? And I think it's pretty common that once they start to settle and everyone sort of thinks about it a bit more and they realize, okay, it is. So I think you're right. I think almost everyone I've ever known or ever talked about it agrees that Empire is better.
I guess everyone wasn't ready for that darkness back then. Like,
no, that dark
what's up
middle
with
chapter.
this dark ending? Where's all the hope and all the celebrations at the end?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we need some songs.
Hmm.
Are we going to get straight into it? Are we going to run into the trilogy right now? Do anyone want to talk about the trilogy in general before we go?
I just wanted to ask, when did you guys watch these films first? Grant, you said you were a kid?
Yeah, I think I was like 7 or 8. I watched them at a friend's house. I remember
Yeah.
them like, I don't know, we were out doing stuff during the day, and like when we get home, we're watching Star Wars, and I was so excited. And then just any time they were around, I was watching them.
Yeah.
So I have this like very distinct memory of being maybe 6 or 7 years old and seeing A New Hope in the cinema. So it obviously would have been a re-release at the time.
Yeah.
I believe my brother-in-law at the time, or it was my sister's boyfriend at the time, or whatever, took me because he's a big Star Wars fan. He's always known as like the Star Wars guy in our family. And I don't even remember. I just know I saw like the scene of them jumping over the bridge with the stormtroopers shooting at them. I know I saw that as one of my first memories of like a cinema, and I know I was super young, and I remember seeing that in the cinema. I remember seeing Phantom Menace when it launched at the cinema. I remember like all the action figures being around at the time. I was a young kid and super excited to go see that. And obviously before that, I'd seen the old ones on VHS at home and everything like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely ingrained from childhood. Like,
Because there was that 1997 re-release, which had the first sort of round of effects. So you might have actually
it would have been that. I
seen.
would have been
Yeah, you
5.
might have seen that in the
So
cinema.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I didn't see these films till I was actually like as a teenager. I remember I saw bits of A New Hope on TV one night. I actually have this distinct memory of watching it, and then I vomited that night. Not because of the movie, unrelated issues, but
Well,
I remember
it's all part of the
it was.
history in your mind now.
Yeah, exactly. It really cemented. That's my earliest memory of Star Wars. I think I just never got around to it for whatever reason. My parents didn't really like. They're Star Trek fans, not Star Wars fans, so it was
So
never.
had you seen like the prequels by that point? Or do you mean Star Wars in
Yes.
general?
No,
Okay.
I'd seen the prequels. So I remember watching one of those when I was in primary school. Oh, no, I don't know. I saw. No, it would have been high school. I'd already seen them, but then I watched the trilogy properly. Like I sat down, and watched 4, 5, and 6 when I was like 15 or something.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I was
Yeah,
actually
right.
very late to the show, but it kind of speaks to it that it still holds a pretty. I'm not, like one of those avid fans. I won't die on a hill to defend it, but do still think it's really, but they're still great films and they're really valuable. I think it kind of speaks to it, right? It's not just a matter of nostalgia. It's not just I saw these when I was a kid, so I love them. It's like no, I
Yeah.
came to them pretty late, and I still love them. I was still sort of the inner child was still blown away by this when I was a cynical teenager. So,
True.
but yeah, I think it's interesting.
Conan, do you want to take us away on the synopsis for A New Hope?
I'll do it. All right, A New Hope. So, let me set the stage for you. The Empire is. No, I don't even know what the crawl says. Anyway, the Imperial forces, under orders from cruel Darth Vader, hold Princess Leia hostage in their efforts to quell the rebellion against the Galactic Empire. Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, captain of the Millennium Falcon, work together with the companionable droid duo R2D2 and C3PO to rescue the beautiful princess, help the Rebel Alliance, and restore freedom and justice to the galaxy.
See, I find that fascinating that there's that whole synopsis, and it doesn't even mention the fact that Luke needs to go to Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
So I was trying to find a synopsis for this, and there's one that's like, it starts off with Luke is stuck on his home planet, needing to go to Toshi Station. Like it literally started off with that, and I'm like, we don't need all that backstory. It's
That's not a plot
unnecessary.
point.
No.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. How do we start about a
I
conversation about
love
Star
how
Wars?
these films open. So I've been unwell. I've got the Rona. I've been binge watching what is it, like CGI artists react. Do you guys know that channel?
Yeah,
And they
Corridor Crew.
Corridor Crew. They did a Star Wars one, and they showed the effects that they used. And I'd been thinking about special effects a lot, and then I watched these movies, and I thought it's so smart that this movie starts off. It starts off with humans. It doesn't start off with puppets. It doesn't start off with any aliens. It starts off with people, ships, and robots. All things that they can do really well with the effects they had at the time. Like, as good as some of the puppets are later on, they definitely stick out as odd. They catch you off guard. But if you start
Yeah.
this out with the ships, you started out with people, you started out with the robots, you get a really, like, it feels like you're in outer space without sort of taking you out of it, out of the the realism of it, I guess. And
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know, I really appreciated how it starts off with R2D2 and C3PO, trekking across Tatooine, and then they slowly introduce the Jawas and stuff like that. And they're characters that work pretty well because you can't see faces or anything like that. Just
yeah,
I don't know. It felt really, really smartly designed to draw you into this universe and be like, what the hell is going on? There's like, I
yeah,
could imagine this. I mean, this blew me away as a kid. I can imagine audiences in 1977 or whatever it was, just being
yeah.
absolutely blown away by this movie.
That yeah, 100%, and it's done so well because I think, like, being so different to what was popular at the time, if you start this movie with a blue elephant playing the drum kit and, like, Max
Yeah,
Rebo, if that's the opening scene, people are gonna hard
Yeah.
bail out of that. People
I'm
aren't gonna
out.
take that
I'm done.
seriously, you know?
yeah,
But no, that's the thing, it starts very, human-like and practical effects, like the robots, it's humans wearing metal suits, like,
yeah,
walking around, like, and that stuff still stands up. Like, it's not like
100%.
C3PO looks so bad because it's not, like, it's there. He looks like that. So it's yeah, I really like the whole intro of this. It's especially like as a kid, like there's the classic thing of the two moons or the two suns or whatever you
Yeah,
want to call it. Like it's that alone, it's like so iconic. And obviously, kids these days are spoiled with what they see in sci-fi, but that's like this whole thing of like this is a different world. Like
Mm.
you don't see sights like that, and that's what this planet sees. And it's
yeah,
just yeah, it's a really good
It
way to start the film.
it does a great thing, like, speaking on that point, what it does really well, I think, is it's always, like, 1 degree of separation. It's familiar enough. There's a term for it that someone coined, I think it was a film store or something, I can't remember what it is, but it's familiar enough that all of it makes sense. It's not a blue elephant playing drums, it's not this bizarre thing. There's a human, but something's slightly wrong with them.
yeah,
There's a sun, like, it's a sunset over a desert, but there's 2 of them.
yeah,
There's these little guys who are obviously human but they're a bit weird. And so it sort of like raises a question in your mind of like, okay, I'm intrigued. I want to know what that is. But you always know, well, the storytelling is very clear and concise. You always know the Jawas are scavengers because that's all we see them doing. Like we know the robots are lost because they're in a whole desert. Even like the opening part, you're in this white station and you see this very clear basic battle, and then this black figure emerges, completely draped in
yeah,
shadow. And it's like, okay, this guy's literal evil. I've got it.
yeah.
I know that.
What an
Yeah,
intro for a character.
One of the
yeah.
best. And yeah,
Just
it's just. Sorry, you go.
no, you go. I was just gonna gush about Darth Vader's suit and like how cool he looks walking in with all these
Yeah.
goofy people with their big helmets on.
No, let's do that. Like, is Darth Vader the best villain of all time?
I mean, let's not go that far.
I,
But
he could, but he could be, right? I think it's a
Definitely,
very
yeah. Like, I definitely think you can go that far. Like, from his intro to just like how ominous he is, like the breathing, like just all
yeah,
these things that just go together to give him.
iconic.
And
I'll take that he's
the
like the most
music,
iconic.
yeah.
Yeah,
John Williams' score is like that dude
that's
is
yeah,
a genuine genius. There's no other way to put it. Just so iconic.
yeah. No, and that's the thing. Like speaking of the opening, I thought we were going to touch it, but just like the whole unique thing of this like scroll, like this text scroll that just gives you like this is what's going on. This is what this world is like. With just you wouldn't think it's like interesting, but it's so iconic, and that's Star Wars. Like no, I don't think any film now could just get away with like having their like this blast of music with their logo popping up, and then have like a scroll of text that you read to like
yeah.
introduce you to this film or whatever.
Yeah.
But it
Or if
works. Like every Star Wars film, you're sitting there like waiting, like, okay, there's the logo. Now when it's going to kick in, here we go. Like it started. It's it's great.
Or if a film ever did it now, just like, oh, they're parodying Star Wars or they're riffing on
Mm.
Star Wars. Like Star
Yeah.
Wars they have the entire lease on text scrolls, which is probably good because they're super campy when you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the fun. These films are campy, right? There's a lot of shock to them. There's a lot of goofiness, but they're also really earnest and they're also really, I don't know, they mash genres really well. Like all the stuff on Tatooine, it feels like a Western, right?
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
really got that Western vibe. He's this farm boy. It's got that old samurai vibe. He's like it was like all these old like films and TVs that George Lucas grew up watching. They've kind of shaped this. What is it? The Adventures of Flash Gordon, all this stuff like that. They're kind of like these sci-fi westerny things. They've got all that in it, but then you've got clear sci-fi in the opening scene. You've got a romance plot that comes up later. You've got all these great genres that are mashed in, and so it's like everyone gets something out of this film.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting even looking around. Like some people don't even regard these as sci-fi films; they call them fantasy, just because they don't deal with hard sci-fi issues, right? They're not looking at the effect of technology in our lives in 100 years or anything like that. Like it's a space opera, you know. It's
if we want to be correct, it's not a science fiction film.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to argue that.
But it's a lot more palatable too, in a lot of ways. Like it reaches a wider audience, and I don't know. I still call it sci-fi because I just love these movies.
It's got that aesthetic for sure, but and I mean, there's not really much of a point to really argue it unless some jerk comes up to you and is like, "It's hard sci-fi," and then you can argue. But
yeah,
if someone's enjoying it and they're like, "I love sci-fi because of that," just let them have it.
Yep.
Yeah, don't actually them. It's fantasy. Don't.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
So, should we just talk about the plot and stuff?
Yeah,
Can we
go
just
for it.
Okay. One thing I want to touch on, like, I'm not going to criticize these films too much. It's just more when you're watching
see.
something that you've seen so many times, you usually tend to focus on, like, when you're critically looking at something, you usually tend to write down the notes of stuff that bothers you or like that. Man, Luke's really not cut up by the people that raised him being burnt to a crisp.
Yeah,
my biggest takeaway as well. Man.
These people, legit, as we know from the prequels, raised him from birth till now when he's a 17-year-old. He comes home to see their like mummified skeletons burnt to a crisp, goes back to old Ben, and he's just like, "There's nothing here for me now. I want to follow you and learn to be a Jedi like my father." And then like Ben dies, and he's like, "No!" He's like so much more cut up about this old hermit man that he's met for a day or two. It's just there's a weird disconnect there. And I know it's his uncle and aunt, but they literally raised him as if it's his child.
It doesn't matter if it's just his uncle and aunt. It's still
No, it should be pretty cut up. But I understand it's just like move along. Like we don't want this whole thing about him being depressed, but it stands out. I feel like as this thing that he doesn't really give a shit. He doesn't cry. He just goes back and he's like, "There's nothing here for me now. They burn all my shit."
He looks at the dirt and then looks up and it's like, I've grieved.
Time for me to be a man. I'm moving on now.
I don't think it would have been that hard for him to put a bit of I don't know, do it in a montage or something, but just show a grieving process of some sort. Do you know what I mean? Like
fight dancing out in the desert.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like a Rocky montage.
Looking out
you know,
a rainy window, just hello. Is it me? And then he like is that just they probably couldn't do much with young Mark Hamill because he's not much of an actor in these original films. So
let's talk about Mark Hamill. Should we talk about him now?
Yeah,
because it's in my notes here. So
all right. So Luke, you don't think he's a good actor? Because that's my takeaway every time I watch these films. I'm like, is Mark Hamill even talented at this point? Is it George Lucas's crappy direction in the first film? I don't know.
I think obviously he's very young here. Like Mark Hamill's very young here. I don't know of his acting experience before this. I don't think there was much from my knowledge and memory or whatever.
No.
I'm not going to say Mark Hamill's not a great actor because I've known him in roles now, especially voice acting roles, where he's really good. In these films, his acting's very stiff, and you can't buy into it. That's something I wrote down 2 notes of like Mark Hamill's not a great actor in these films, and holy shit, does Harrison Ford really make these films because he's a damn star. And the second he's introduced, it's like, okay, I'm on board for this like sci-fi western adventure,
Yeah,
and he just oozes charisma, and he's charming and charismatic, and like I really feel like as much as this like Star Wars is Luke, Han Solo is like the heart of these films. I really feel like so.
he really is. That was my takeaway too. Like, he
Yeah,
really, he's the character uh, that there's a reason why he's the character that stands out from these films. Like, people don't
yeah,
love Star Wars because of Luke, unfortunately.
No.
Like, he's fine. I don't think people dislike him, but people love Han, and it's just so
yeah.
obvious why. Like, he's just so well played by Harrison Ford. It's interesting to see Harrison Ford now. Like, he never cared about Star Wars
No, he
at
really
all.
doesn't.
Like, he really doesn't. I mean, he doesn't seem to care about any acting. Like, he's just there for
No.
them, and that's fine. Like, people, he's still good at it, but it's just like, it's interesting because you tend to overlay your love of the character onto him, but
Yeah.
doesn't work, right? Like,
No, that's the thing. You got to separate the art from the artist because you don't want to be like. I've seen people like meet him and interview him and be like, "Oh, so who shot first, Han or Greedo?" And he's like, "I don't care. Like, I don't know what the f you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Get a life, please."
It's like
yeah,
he's got that old movie star magic, right? He's just like, I'm not
Yeah,
usually a fanboy. I just turn up, look great,
I
go
did
and
my
probably
job.
I probably smoke a cigar afterwards, and I don't know.
I
yeah.
got
It's,
paid. That's
yeah,
that. That was
yeah,
a job.
exactly.
But
Like he's a real man's man.
How did you
that's
guys
Han
feel about
Solo.
Alec Guinness, his performance in these movies? Because he's similar.
He's
He very much does not understand did not understand Star Wars. Doesn't care about it. He was just there doing his thing.
but made the best choice ever. Like he got paid in marketing or something,
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
it?
right. He
Yep.
got a percentage of the film's gross or something like that.
Brilliant. Like
Yep.
one of the smartest moves, which I don't even know if he was aware of or if he's like it was like a charity thing, but
Yeah,
God, it
Yep.
paid off for him. Wow.
Because I think he was very much a like a theater actor,
yeah.
and doing this. I really like him. I feel like he has this like wise sort of old man and sort of comforting thing about him. But yeah, 100% the same sort of thing that from what I know, yeah, he didn't really care about the franchise or anything like that
No.
too much, or the fan side of things. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Like I don't think a lot of the actors even like especially coming away from these films cared about it much. It's really kind of like the franchise almost became a curse to all the people involved in a lot of ways. Like Mark
Mm,
Hamill, his career really kind
well,
of
that's just something I was going to say. Like, when we're talking about the differences between Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill's acting and stuff, it's not like Mark Hamill didn't leave from this and get cast in heaps of different things and became a big star.
did
Harrison
nothing.
Ford
Yeah.
left and became Indiana Jones, like
yeah.
because of
Yeah.
Han Solo. It's yeah,
And that's the thing, like, do you reckon it's just because of performances, or is it because looking at this, I was trying to figure out if Mark Hamill, like, if he's attractive, like, if he was a handsome dude, was he just lacking like the genuine basic, like, he's really sexy to sort of to get through? Because Harrison Ford has that, right? It's like
Mm.
this dude's a stud. You could put a poster of him in your wall and you'd get it. Whereas Mark Hamill, he's not conventionally attractive enough in any way. And I wonder if it's just because is that why he never took off, or was it just because I don't know? What do you guys think?
I think for the first two films, he's kind of whiny. He's
Mm,
kind of whiny, and like I mean, after that second one, he's got that whole incest stank on him. Maybe people just weren't spoilers. But that's the thing. Like it's a whole different world with Harrison Ford, and like charisma and that star power. Um, is the main driving force behind that. Like as soon as Harrison Ford's on the scene, like that scene is his.
Yeah.
And like I mean, Chewbacca steals the scene more than Luke Skywalker does. Like it's like legit. Yeah. I don't want to rip on Mark Hamill too much because I like he's great, but yeah,
and he grows into the role. I think you see him in 5 and then
yeah,
in 6.
Yeah.
He's definitely better. And
yeah,
oh, you're right. He's a young actor still. He's really finding his feet. And I do think like that scene with his uncle. I'm like, surely like Lucas at the time should have been like, no, give me some emotion. Like, I can't imagine either of them were working properly that day to have that scene in the film, right? It's not good.
he
But
he's
yeah,
he's the only actor that you know loves Star Wars, I guess now. Like, he's the one on
mm,
Twitter who defends it and talks about it and interacts with fans. So that's the one nice thing about it too. But yeah, it is unfortunate he
yeah.
never took off as a star.
Yeah, because I think he did hate. Like, I think he disliked it for a while because
I
he
think so.
obviously wanted to have a career, wanted to be more than just Luke Skywalker. But yeah, he's really just and has lived that. And it's great that he's found his new sort of niche in voice acting because he's a phenomenal voice actor.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and same with Carrie Fisher. Like she kind of didn't do much after this. Sort of has always been Leia, and it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand her career trajectory very well. Like I feel like she should have made it. She's pretty good. I think
There was
she's
a
pretty
lot of
good in these movies.
personal drama
Yeah, I know
with
she had
her.
issues. True.
So
Yeah, the
like,
coke nail appears in a few scenes in Star Wars. Although I think everybody was doing too much coke on
yeah.
this
I'll
movie.
say in the 80s, everyone was just doing coke. It was Hollywood. But yeah, like yeah, she should have taken off. But I guess once you wear that bikini, you're never gonna have a.
Never
You're never
take it
seen as
off.
any. Yeah, you can never see as been seen as anyone else. Um,
So we get the trip into what's the name of the town they go to? Is it Toshi Station? I don't know, wherever
that's
they go.
Moss Eisley.
Yeah, Mos Eisley, that's right. And that's where you
Mos
start
Eisley.
getting all the
Cantina.
CGI effects that don't belong.
Geez, they're bad.
Was there any that you guys saw that you liked, or was it just did it always detract? Because that's how I always feel about it.
I like. I'll sound like a broken record throughout this. Like, the CGI bothered me so much in this. Because obviously they did this early 2000s when they were like, this looks so good, and it
Yeah.
doesn't look good. And I feel like it ruins all the scenes that it's put into. Like, legitimately, it's distracting when you have all these practical effects, and then all of a sudden there's one like CGI character that was made 20 something years later, pasted over the screen. Like, there's a shot when they go into like Mos Eisley and all that. There's a shot of literally like a leg of this big CGI monster that just walks in front of the screen
Yeah.
and
Terrible.
blocks the screen for like a minute or two. There's the one of like a robot punching a little robot down, like haha, slapstick.
You
Another
get
one of a big one standing up and knocking a rider off. It's just like, it's Jar Jar
Yeah,
comedy
exactly.
in
You get a
there.
lot of that Jar Jar stuff
Yep.
that didn't really exist in these trilogies before. These movies before that. That's annoying.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yep.
there's like I watched YouTube videos before that runs them side by side and compares them, and you see
Yep.
that like all the work has gone into the Mos Eisley stuff. Like they've added in all the even when the stormtroopers are in the desert, they've added in a bunch of CGI beasts they're riding, and there's
Them
always
riding
Yeah.
the beasts.
Yeah.
yeah, and they're all like there's like extra scenes like that scene with the robot hitting the little one down. That whole scene is CG, and it looks
Yep.
so plastic and fake.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's just not needed.
no,
It's
it's
just
not.
all of it's none of it adds to any scene. Like, it actively detracts from
So
the
they do
movie.
add the there's that scene with Han and Jabba. So that was a deleted scene, a scene that didn't make it into the
Yep.
final cut, and they add it back in. I
So-
kind of like the idea of having that scene there, but obviously it stands out like a sore thumb.
That scene I hate. That's one of the main ones I want to talk about because obviously, so this was a deleted scene of Han Solo and another character, not Jabba the Hutt. It was a human character that was basically telling him that Jabba wants his money.
They were gonna
And-
edit. They were gonna edit in a creature over him, though. It was gonna be someone different.
Okay, but still, so because like I was watching a YouTube video because I was like, man, I like this scene is weird, and it seems to be this big talking point that like nobody knew who Jabba the Hutt looked like or anything until he shows up in Return of the Jedi. You know, there's all this talk you owe him. He's got a bounty out on your head. Boba Fett's working for him, and then he shows up in the famous scene like at his palace or whatever, and that's the first time he's in. This one, he's standing outside his ship, walking, chatting with him. Han Solo treads on his tail, which if you look at the original scene, he just walks behind that character. And when you pay they literally like pick up Han Solo's model and like
It's so
move him up
bad.
and back down over Jabba's tail to as if he's trodden on his tail.
Yeah,
It's so bad, and I feel like it takes away from who Jabba the Hutt is, makes him feel less threatening. So then 2 movies later, when he shows up again, he doesn't feel threatening now sitting on this palace.
Yeah.
You have this feeling like he's this thing that hasn't moved and he commands this town. Well, this one, he's just like, hey Han, I want my money back. Oh, okay then. It's just, it ruins Jabba the Hutt as far as I'm concerned, and it's completely unnecessary. And yeah, I'm pissed off about it. But yeah.
It's funny. No one liked that scene. Like all the
No.
edits that were made, no one except Lucas thought that was a good choice. But
Of course.
I think it's the common trend that we find in this trilogy, and it's what we've talked about in. So what I still remember us talking about in John Wick. There's that real sense of in the original cuts, under all the constraints, there's a real mystery to everything, and Jabba, like you say, is a mystery. You have sort of two films where it's like Jabba the Hutt. Who is this dude? He must be really evil if he's going to do all this stuff, and he has this reach.
Yeah.
And then by
Yeah.
adding him in the first, and so it's a payoff in return because
Yeah.
you finally see it's like, oh, he's this gross slug, but he's
Yeah.
obviously so powerful that he's a slug. But in this, you're
Yeah.
right, you see in this weird scene, and you have a badly CGI'd Boba Fett in the background just because everyone likes Boba
Yeah.
Fett.
Yeah.
And,
It's just
and it's,
adding him to so many more scenes.
yeah, and it's just like, oh, I agree with you 100%. The scene because they're really friendly in that scene. He's like, "I'm gonna get
Yeah.
your money," and Jabba's like, "Thanks, man. You're a great guy. Give me 20%." And Han's like, "No, 15%." And Jabba's like, "Okay,
Han,
15." Like, why is Jabba agreeing to this? He's a
Han
freaking
like
cop.
rubs his chest, like
Yeah.
rubs
Yeah.
Jabba's chest because the original human actor's wearing like a fur coat, and
Mm,
he's like patting the fur on him, and it's just
yeah,
weird that Han's like, "Hey Jabba, it's okay, I'll get you your money."
yeah.
Doesn't feel threatening then the next film when it's like, "Hey Jabba wants his money back." It's like, oh, old Jabba, he's getting a bit antsy.
He needs a
It
scratch behind
ruins
his
it.
ears.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
next time you see him,
Um,
he's frozen in carbonite, being kept as a trophy. Like, yeah, it's a bit of a
it's a jump.
it's a real jump.
I just want to quickly say, Millennium Falcon is such a cool name. I don't know why. Just even as a kid, that name was just like it has awe around it, like the
Yeah.
Millennium Falcon.
And this is the
Sounds really
thing
cool.
about George Lucas. And it's kind of the common thing that's touted. He's great at world building. He's great at creating the stuff. Like the Star Wars name trends that he starts are really good. Like Han Solo is such a cool
Yep.
name.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's familiar enough that it's almost like, yeah, I can imagine someone being called Han, but not quite. And like Luke Skywalker, obviously, which
Skywalker
is
is just
amazing. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi becoming old Ben Kenobi. They're just really clever, good choices that I think do so much. Even Jabba the Hutt, that sounds really threatening. Like
Yep.
it almost sounds like the Huns or something. It's all the naming and stuff.
Stormtrooper, Boba
Yeah.
Fett.
Boba Fett.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to hate on George Lucas for that. I just feel like
Uh,
he maybe got dementia later on, like
Like,
really early, and started wrecking his old films. Like, and they're just like, stop it,
yeah.
Grandpa.
There's a
He
lot of
just
issues,
started
but
fiddling with it.
every time I watch it, I think that's why these are so endearing, is because like, man, the world feels so cool and the names are real. Like names that are a big thing to me. When you get a name that makes no sense, I kind of tune out. I'm like, no. You've obviously just put words together and been like, oh, here's a cool name no one's heard of. But all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
names in this, all the sort of the thought, to an extent at least, all sort of the surface level thought of it is there. I'm like, it's a great world. You clearly love what you're making, George.
Yeah.
And we love it for that.
So if to move on, but I always forget because like I feel like A New Hope is maybe the one I've seen the least in my life. Like I feel like it's the one every time I watch it again, I'm like, oh, that's right. I always forget that there's a Death Star in this one. And like that this is where they first destroy the Death Star. And like I know that seems weird because then I feel like it's so weird to have two Death Stars and to do the same thing
I mean,
twice.
yeah, that's
And I'll
also a
get
bit
into
weird.
that later in the second one. But like I remember this the second one they destroyed, and I remember Luke destroying and use the Force and all that. But it's always weird to me that when I'm watching the first one, Ben dies, they have that thing, they escape, and then like okay, and now the March of the Death Star. I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm like, shit, that's in this film. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. They build it again and do it again in the third one. But
I mean, if you're going to build one, why wouldn't you build two?
yeah, I
It's
guess
true.
so.
How do
Guess
it?
so.
How bad is the fight between Vader and Obi-Wan? It feels like
Okay,
it's unfortunate, but it feels really, really lame. I've seen some fan edits recently that are really, really cool.
super cool.
Yeah, it's unfortunate,
Like
but yeah,
I watched this with my son. Like this is his first time watching these films,
yeah.
and he watched all of them with me. And legitimately, there was a part coming up to that fight where I was like, I wonder if I could just skip over to that YouTube video of that fan edit of this cool fight, show him that because this will be his first lightsaber fight that he'll see,
Yeah.
and he'll be like, "Wow, this is so cool." And then I'll go back and finish it with his death scene. I feel like the fight's a little lame, and no matter what, I know like it's a very old and everything. I can't help but feel like the whole thing of him just disappearing and the cloak falling is lame. Like it has no impact. Like when I watch that, I'm not like, oh no, he died. I'm like, magic trick. He
Yeah.
disappeared. And especially that Darth Vader like walks up and starts like tapping at it, like, hey, where'd you go? Like it seems weird to me, but I know it's like a choice that they made, and he's becoming a Force ghost, and
Yeah.
Yoda does it as well. And I get that. It feels doesn't feel weighty to just be like.
But Anakin proper dies later, and he also appears as a Force ghost. So
yeah, exactly.
Thankfully,
it's a
as young
strange
Anakin,
choice.
too.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that happened.
That's so good. I love seeing my boy
Not young Obi-Wan though.
No,
we got to come to that. We got to talk
We'll
a lot about
We'll get to that.
Wow.
But
do you guys
yeah,
like? Sorry, continue.
No, go.
Do you guys like the whole final sort of flight like scene with attacking the Death Star?
So I was just about to say, how good is the final scene? Like for me personally, I really enjoy it. I think there's a really, really good building of tension where they show these graphics of the Death Star moving into focus so it can attack the rebels. Between that and what's going on in the ships with Luke and his team and making that 1 in a million shot, I think there's a really good building of tension there. And then I don't know, I find it a very satisfying just destruction at the end too.
I do like it. I like it better than the one in Return of the Jedi. I feel like this is like the definitive blowing up the Death Star thing. It has the timing that it's getting into a position to do that. Like Grana said, I love the fact that like he doesn't use the sensor; he uses the Force to make the shot.
Yeah.
And I love Han coming in the Millennium Falcon to take out the behind him and like coming back when they'd all thought he'd left, like as a hero thing. Like, you've got this, Luke. Now take it from here. Like, I love that whole finale sort of thing. The only thing is Chewie deserved a medal as well, but
yeah, Chewie got wronged.
You didn't like it so much?
No, like it is a good. Like you're right. Like all of storytelling in this is really, like it's all really well paced and clear. Like there is a great build of attention, and the whole time you're watching, you're like, okay, I know what they're doing, I know where they're going, I know how it's structured and what's going on. It's just not my favorite part of the movie. I kind of enjoy everything before this a lot more.
Yeah,
I enjoy the westernness of the rest of the movie.
Fair enough.
We haven't talked about Han shooting first.
yeah.
And we're going to have to talk about
I mean, do we have to talk about that? Everybody knows, like, his character shoots first.
Changing
not in the version I saw.
Changing it is a sin. I mean, what they change it to now, they shoot simultaneously. It's so bad.
They shoot simultaneously.
Greedo is slightly first. They made very sure that he is first, but it's close.
It's so stupid.
But it looks so weird. And that's the thing, like, to see the original version of him being like, boom, shoots him from under the table, like, cool, casual, yeah, I'll shoot people, like, completely separates him from Luke and shows what he's willing to do. Gets up, flicks a coin to the bartender, like, sorry about the mess. He's a gunslinger. He's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
and
so
having him react a split second by moving his head, then shooting straight after, takes it all away. Like, it takes all of it away.
It's like, think about this, like someone shoots and you can like time the bullet to dodge it. This isn't
Han is Force sensitive. He just doesn't know it.
And the thing is, obviously, the explanation is they didn't want Han to seem like this cold murderer to shoot someone who had a gun pointed at him, like he was under threat and he was going to shoot him.
Yeah.
And Han's just too quick for that. They do that and edit that and ruin that, but have no problem with Obi-Wan Kenobi lopping a dude's arm off a second ago because of a fight in a bar. Like, he was pulling a gun out as well, and he's just like, boom, cuts his arm off. He's a psycho killer who we have no problem with, but this scoundrel, no, we need to make sure he's morally correct.
You know what's interesting? I was reading about how George Lucas obviously goes on to defend that a lot, and he's like, "No, I always wanted Han to shoot like second to shoot in response." But then they ended up finding a replica of the original script dated from like 75 or something, so long before any edits were ever made. And in there, it says that Han shoots first.
He's full of shit.
Yeah,
he's full of shit. Oh,
it's very strange. Like, just I don't know why you would make that change and stick to that. Like, die on that hill. Why?
No, it's bad.
He's an odd cat, George Lucas. He's an odd cat. So
with a strange beard. Um, is there anything else we should talk about New Hope with before we move on? Or?
No, I think let's get to
I'm ready to move on.
Empire Strikes Back.
All right. Yeah, episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Chewbacca face attack by the Imperial forces and its AT-AT walkers on the ice planet Hoth. While Han and Leia escape in the Millennium Falcon, Luke travels to Dagobah in search of Yoda. Only with the Jedi Master's help will Luke survive when the dark side of the Force beckons him into the ultimate duel with Darth Vader. That's a good synopsis. Wow.
It's a good movie, man.
Yeah.
Sure is.
So 6 months ago, I saw the original 35mm print in the cinema, and it was so much fun. Packed out cinema, all these nerds around. Everyone's just super enthusiastic. I'm like,
Wait,
this
like
is
the original cut, or
yeah, like the
Yeah.
proper film print. So from I'm assuming it was the 70s because I don't think they made another film print. So it would have been from 1980.
nice.
Like because they sometimes do that. They they send them out as little just special events. I was like one night here in a cinema, and it was awesome.
So before we get into the actual plot of the movie, I will say I feel like this is the movie that's least impacted from CGI edits and all that. And I
Yeah.
feel like the only edits that are in this do actually enhance this film. So I know like they did a lot of stuff with landscapes and backdrops in this, especially on Sky City, or is it
Cloud City.
Cloud City? Like the whole the way the skies look in that, they redid that for these ones. Like it's much more, and it looks way better. Like it looks really majestic. Like it looks like this really upper class sort of place. While before it was very sterile. A lot of walls where they removed them and put the windows now to see the landscapes and everything. I feel like that made it really good, and they just did small stuff like adding in doors at the top of the Millennium Falcon when Lando was coming up. Like it's small things where it's like makes sense for a door to open up, for him to come out and grab Luke at the end. But I didn't have any notes on this about CGI ruining scenes for me. And I took the least notes on this movie because it's the movie that I was just watching and just entertained by.
Same. Yep.
And yeah, it's always the way. If I have no notes, it's because I enjoyed the movie the most. So yeah, I love this film. It's great. It's really great.
Yep.
And it is really good. It's a lot of fun. But like you're saying earlier, Grant, and Luke, it's dark. Like it's actually it's a much darker turn for the franchise. It's gone away from those Western roots, and it's more of almost like a feel bad film in a lot of ways. It's really interesting. It's so endearing though, but it's it's kind of tonally shifting away towards the end. But something that I just love about it is again the original one. You had the desert landscapes, and then you have the space battle. You sort of got these two massive set pieces. And this one, you start on an ice planet, right? And you've got half the film on this great ice planet, and then you go to a swamp planet, and then you got another interesting space installation. Just a really good knack of settings like that. They're different. That it's not just more desert. It's not just a boring here's Earth planet. It's no, here's something really exciting and different that we don't really that we know what ice is, but we don't have ice that bad.
Yeah,
and it's really cool. It's really fun. You see Luke, obviously that great scene where Luke has to get put inside the tauntaun or whatever it is.
Yeah, that always stands out. I mean, the whole Hoth scene is great, but
yeah, it's the same thing that Grant was saying about A New Hope. I love the whole opening scenes on Hoth, them going out on a ride, scouting, Luke getting attacked by a Yeti out there, and then hung up in a cage. And the Yeti's still scary, man. He's sitting there just munching into these beasts and
eating
blood
bones
all down his mouth. It looks way scarier than anything else they do, and that's really cool. Han, as much as a scoundrel, he's got his pay. He goes out to look for Luke. There's something cool about Han using a lightsaber to cut open the
slice open the
tauntaun.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. I really like that they do that to survive. And then you've got the AT-ATs, and that's so iconic. To take them down.
I love them taking down the AT-ATs. It's really good. I don't know. It just really emphasizes the rebels. They're low on resources. They don't really have the weapons that can take these down. They have to be smarter than the enemy, and it's just I don't know. I love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
Wrapping around the legs and then Luke like jumping up in one. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Are the AT-ATs the worst idea in the world though? Slow walking things with very long legs. Like we had tanks in the 40s.
Yes. They also have flying ships. Like, I don't know why they need them. It's like it's a poor choice by the Empire, but it's still cool. It's still really cool.
Yeah.
It's to help them get through the snow. You know, it's like
Yeah.
trudging
but
through.
you never even see them penetrate snow. It'd be cool if it was like that would actually make it really good. They're like, we need to deploy snow walkers, and like the legs go, like 3 meters into snow. It's like, oh, it makes sense. A tank would just sink, but instead they're just.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a suspension of disbelief for me. I'm always like, those make no sense.
Yeah.
And you can't even say like, oh, they can climb over the snowy mountains and stuff because
Because they
they
can't.
trip and blow up. But they are cool. They are cool, and the sound, like that's the thing. We talked about the music with John Williams, but like the sound in these films, like sound of lightsabers, the sound of pistols, the sound of ships, the sound of the AT-ATs walking, like it's just all of it's so cool and like iconic, you know. And you hear that sound, you know what it is straight away. So
even
it's true,
even like the cockpit chatter, like back and forth between the different dudes in their ships and like talking to each other, it's so good. And like the other thing that I always notice is like the backgrounds really stand up. Like you get a real sense of speed of them flying around. Like it doesn't look like a bad green screen like some do still today. It's just all so well done. I love it.
Yep.
Practical effects, they make all the difference, right? And again, it's kind of like a choice of necessity because you need to cut away from all the effects of them flying because that's too expensive and hard to do.
Yeah.
So by showing a close up of their face, it actually saves you time, like the editor's time. And so that works great because you actually get a personal sense of who these people are. And
that's the thing, like watching this, I didn't realize until watching this, like there's that moment where the Imperial March theme kicks in for the first time because it's not in A New Hope, and you hear it and straight away you're like, oh yeah, like this is Star Wars, this is like the Empire, this is Darth Vader, this is so cool. And like that theme is so awesome. I love that theme so much.
It is so good.
That's the thing. I feel like everything with Darth Vader in this, we didn't touch on it in A New Hope. Grand Moff Tarkin, or the Tarkin dude that is
Grand Moff
Colonel. But
Tarkin.
now that he's more of like, you know, the main officer in this one, I like seeing Vader with that. And there's the talk of the Emperor and everything like that. What's your guys' opinion on Yoda?
I don't love him. I think he's fine. I get what they're going for. Like it's a fun. The first time you see it, right? Like you don't know what's going on. He goes there. You think he is just some weird little hermit. Like he's, I don't know. He feels a bit like Jar Jar Binks. So like he feels like he's supposed to be comic relief for 99%.
I mean, how can he not be?
I know.
Yeah, he is. Like he totally is though, right? The tone of this film is pretty dark.
Yeah.
You need that element to sort of offset the heavy-handedness of like, we're gonna die. We need a trainer will die. So you have this little puppet there laughing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because like I touched on earlier, I felt like I went years without watching these, you know, and like my main memory is of the prequels and stuff. And Yoda's always this like wise counselor in those ones, which is set before these ones. Obviously, he's just gone mad being a hermit all this time.
Yeah,
and then like it's such a stark contrast when you watch all these films, and he's in there and he's like, and he's like smacking Luke with a stick, like, "Go on your snacks."
Yeah,
I love it.
And he's like, and he's like a Muppet. He's like literally like a Muppet character that's like crawling around with his little bum hanging out. He's like, it's cute and he's funny. My son loved Yoda, so
that's good.
But
he's very Muppety. Very Jim Henson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Yoda. I honestly think Yoda is one of the best parts of it. I think he really stands out. I think because I think, like I said, you need that comedy, which he brings a lot to it. But I think there's like it's both really interesting having that idea of like after the reveal where it's like, oh, this is Yoda, you know, like the wise man. You never know the wise man because they're unassuming. They're not flashy, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But also when you watch the prequels, I have another appreciation because he's so sort of like boring in the prequels that we'll get to eventually, where he's just kind of always like, oh, I'm wise and depressed because the Jedi are dying, but I don't do anything. And so to sort of have this idea that his priority when you meet him in this film is to just have fun and like he's kind of irreverent. It's like he's a wise old man who just doesn't care about this. He's like, I'm just it's kind of cynical, but it's in an interesting way where he's like, he's not heavy-handed about it. He's like, I'm just gonna have a bit of fun because that's what I haven't seen anyone in 30 years. Like,
Yeah.
Yep. It's
so
like,
he's not gonna be like, oh, hello. I'm glad he's not like, I've been
no.
waiting for you, Luke Skywalker. He's just like,
He
he's
could
rummaging through stuff.
he could be Obi-Wan 2.0, and that would be pretty dull.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it's so interesting that, like, you know, they make this choice with like his language, him just like to say sentences in reverse,
Yeah.
and it's like such this odd thing of like, no, he's this, you know, grand wise master, and doesn't he speaks backwards,
Yeah.
basically, but it's so iconic, you know, like, and like that's the thing. There's so many quotes from him that it's just like it's iconic, you know, all of his
Yeah,
There is
lines
no
and
try. Yeah.
exactly. But he's scary in some scenes. There's that scene where he's like, "You will be, you will be," and he's scaring with the little Muppet eyes, and it's kind of horrifying actually. But
Beady little Muppet eyes.
I do like I it's funny and like it stands out. But I do like Yoda. I like him moving the ship, you know, and showing like, no, it's just all in your head. Like,
What a
look at
legend,
me.
right?
I'm just
Yeah.
going to lift the ship and move it out. It
Such
ain't
a
nothing
flex.
for me. Like,
Ugh.
Luke, you little whiner. Like, stop it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Dagobah's just such a cool planet, like a gross
Cool in the
swamp
name too,
with
as well,
monsters.
like you said
Yeah,
earlier. Dagobah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just fits. It's a really nice contrast to what we'd had. It's
Yeah. I love all
and you
these.
got
I love all these planets that just have one biome. It's just this is a swamp planet. That's all there is here. It's just swamp,
yep,
just
love it.
ice, just desert.
Yep.
Because again, it's got that really clear sort of visual sense of like he's in the pits, right? This is Luke's like dark moment where he's got to reflect. He's got to really figure out what he wants. And he's got to suffer through this training to become the character he wants to be. And so it's in this dark, gross place. Like you really get that sense of, oh, he's in somewhere bad. He's in somewhere dark and despairing. Like it's just good. Again, it's good storytelling. Like they have great awareness of how to frame everything in this film and how to just tell it with clear visual conciseness.
Yep.
Oh, good on you.
I really enjoy the other thing that's happening while Luke is on Dagobah is like the escape in the Millennium Falcon. They're flying through the asteroid field and they go down in
Yep.
the hole and get eaten by the worm. I don't know. There's some really good like space effects there. Like watching the Millennium Falcon fly through space looks as good as anything anyone is doing today. It's phenomenal to me that it looks so good.
Yep.
And you get some good Han and Chewie moments in there. I really enjoy
Yep.
that whole section.
Man, I love Han and Chewie's whole
Relationship.
relationship and dynamic together. Like it's
so
just,
good.
I love that he understands him and just like Chewie always just going off his head about parts of the ship being broken. It's just like it's great. I love it so much. So
Kind of strange how. So I just wanted to
no, you go,
quickly
yeah.
how everyone's languages in this is like everyone speaks a different language, but they all understand each other and respond in English.
Yeah.
Like Chewie, so Chewie understands English, but he can't speak it, and Han can understand Wookiee.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
They're probably
he
going to the
can't-
whole thing that everyone has translators in their head that they can understand people.
Yeah.
And they just hear it all. I don't know.
Because it happens a lot. Everyone just talks in different language, and everyone's like responds in another language. That would be the worst way to have a conversation, guys.
Would be hard. Unless there is a translator in the head, which I think is that canon somewhere? I don't know. I feel like it is.
I feel like it's, or that I'm just thinking of one of the 50,000 games that
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, it explains that off.
Everyone sounds English, but they're actually speaking Russian. But it's I don't know. But I mean, like they have C-3PO. Remember, they ask him what he's like a translator.
Oh, there you
There
go.
for
Yeah.
Jabba, saying like what Jabba's saying and all this sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I still think everything in like Cloud City is really cool. Like I love the turn with Lando.
Yeah.
That opening shot of Darth Vader sitting at the end of the dinner table.
And Han
is so
just
cool.
shoots. Han just shoots. He goes for it.
Yeah. Didn't even wait for Vader to shoot first.
To shoot.
No.
He just started blasting.
Imagine that. Imagine that in it.
Han's there waiting. Vader starts attacking. He's like, "That's it." No, but that's the thing. It's so cool to see Han confront Vader. Like it's something. I don't know. I don't know if it's the whole thing with Harrison Ford again. It just feels so much cool. Like, oh my god, Han's taken on Vader now. This is cool. Like, he's not a Jedi, and he's just going to pull out a gun and start shooting.
Yeah.
You got Boba Fett just being cool in the background in this scene too. This is where Boba Fett was actually cool, you know. So
yeah.
Notice how they made him cool. They didn't make him a character.
They did
Yep.
nothing with him.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's, I know. I'm interested to talk about the Boba Fett in number 6. Just why people like him so much.
I mean, yeah. But that's the thing. Boba Fett in this is really cool. I like there's this weird like respect thing between him and Darth Vader that Darth Vader won't, F with Boba Fett or anything like that. He's just like he has to tell him no disintegrations.
Oh,
Like don't
disintegrations.
like
Yeah.
it's cool. And like Boba Fett walks after Vader like, wait a minute, you can't do that. He's no good to me dead. What happens if this like he's like confronting him and he's
Yeah.
cool, man.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. Now he's got a New Zealand accent because they added that in the 2000s.
I was
But
going to say, so they've added that in, haven't they? It was
yeah, it's Tamura Morrison now, who's
okay.
in Book of Boba Fett and who
Yeah,
played
right.
Jango Fett. They redid all his lines. And if you look up on YouTube with the original cut, like the original voice, he's so cool. He's so much cooler.
Much
Like
better.
I have no problem with Tamura Morrison. That's for another day. But like, yeah, the original actor was so cool. Like his voice talking was so much more gunslinger. He's got bloody the things on his boots, like the little whatever you call them,
Spurs.
the spurs. Like he's so cool.
Yeah.
I love the bounty hunter get up in this. Just like he's got like a gun on one arm and something different on another arm, and he's got one missile. And it's
Yep.
just like you can just tell it's like they've got 100 different weapons. And obviously they go
Yep.
into the Mandalorian pretty hard, but
Yeah, they
Yeah.
even
it's
have
just
the like the bounty hunter droids and stuff that they
mm,
like. They're all
Yep.
cool. They're all like. There's so many background characters that become a thing. Like I don't know. It's for no reason too. Like I've played a lot of games, and they like here's Biggs and here's Admiral Akbar, whatever his name is. Like there's just so
Yep.
many characters that have like one line in these movies, but have become a thing
I
since
mean,
then.
people want like Bosk, the yellow dinosaur bounty hunter that's
Yeah,
like with Boba Fett in that one scene on the ship. People want a Bosk series. Like this yellow dinosaur. He's so cool.
yeah,
oh,
But I love everything on Cloud City. There's the whole thing of like obviously C3PO being blown up like in a corridor. You don't really know what's happened, and then Chewie puts him back together and puts him on as a backpack, and his head
yeah.
turned around, and
I love that whole get up. He's got him as a backpack. It's
it's good.
yep,
real Banjo
Chewbacca's
Kazooie
great.
vibes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that this film has so much great character work. Like speaking of was it Orlando? That sort of thing. Like you see his turn, and you kind of as you're watching it all unfold, you see him slowly realize the mistake. Right, everything keeps happening, and it's
Yeah.
like, and he's just like, "Oh, I've really screwed up." And then he turns back, and it's like it all feels earned. Han Solo's
yeah,
character's growth is great because he's still torn. Like he's conflicted. He wants to go, but he obviously has feelings for Leia. He obviously likes Luke.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like, and you're constantly feeling him being like, "Oh, I don't want to be here to help, but oh no, I've got to help again. I guess I'll do it." You feel that tension where he doesn't know what to do. Just
yep,
yeah, I know all the characters feel really. There's real growth and stuff in here, and it's Lawrence Kasdan doing it. So
yeah.
I think he's just got that better sense of craftsmanship than Lucas does at writing characters specifically.
And that's the thing. Like Vader keeps altering the deal, like further and further. Like no, now put them on my ship, and that's the thing. That whole like even just aesthetically wise, that whole area where Han gets frozen in carbonite is so
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Like it's like what's happening here? Like it's all dark as you've got the red like lava floor looking floor sort of thing like through the metal grates, and he just gets dropped down. You have the awesome classic line of like I love you and I know.
Yep.
Like it's
Mm,
so cool, it's so
so
great.
good.
And then then he gets frozen carbonite and it's really messed up.
And
um
there's no like wink or nod that he's going to be back. Don't worry, like because they didn't even know if he was going to be back. There was no contract
Yeah,
or whatever. Like he wasn't planning on coming back. It just feels so dark. Like you really feel
yeah,
like you've lost Han at this point. It's so good.
yeah.
yeah. And Chewie's reaction to it is great, and just you get the whole fight scene with Luke and Vader in this location as well that I think is much better than the lightsaber fight we get in the first one
Oh,
in
for
A New
sure.
Hope.
Infinitely better. Yeah,
Luke
And you
Luke
get
loses his hand, and it's like holy
yep,
shit! Like
yeah,
yeah.
he's actually deformed now. I mean, they kind of just write it away by
But
giving him a
yeah,
robot
in
one. It's
5 minutes.
I
they
know.
totally
Oh.
undo it, which sucks. But then obviously
Like
you
I
yeah.
wish they hadn't made it look human hand as well. Like it literally takes it all away when it's just a human hand with this little
Yeah,
flap that shows the electronics.
yeah,
Like if it was like mangled hook,
Yeah, it's
robot
gonna be like
hand.
3 claws or something, right?
It's just a
Um,
lightsaber stubbed into his shut.
Yeah.
Oh, gone full Evil Dead, yeah. And
Um,
that's you get like the most iconic line of all time, then, right? Cuts his
Yep.
hand off,
I'm your
yeah.
father.
and it's like,
And
yeah, and it's
that
I am
reveal.
your father. Man, I wish I'd seen that in 1980. Holy crap!
Yeah. That's the thing. Like I haven't looked into it. Like I wonder. Surely there'd be videos of like like audience reactions, but it would be so fascinating to see what people's reactions were when that happened, because obviously it comes out of nowhere.
I mean,
I don't think any.
people didn't watch other people react to things back then. That's the problem. That's
Yeah.
that's
No,
a
I
recent
know.
that's a recent trend.
Where's all the reacts videos from back in the
There's
80s?
one dude down the bottom with a camera. He's like, "This is gonna be great one day."
Man, one day I'm gonna upload this. I'm gonna go viral.
To the YouTubes.
But like that's the thing. It's such a cool reveal, and like watching it with my son for the first time, the whole time I was just like watching him, because he was like enthralled in that whole fight scene. Once Han got frozen and everything, he was
Yeah.
enthralled, and just watching him and waiting for that reveal, and for that reveal to happen, and my son had just turned to me like what? He's like, "That's his dad?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm not gonna be like," like it was sort of this whole thing. He's like, "What the hell happened? Where did it go wrong? Like, what's going on? Why is his dad evil? Why did he cut his hand off?" But yeah, it's such a cool reveal, and it's so iconic again. Like everything, so many things in these films are just legendary and iconic
Yeah.
in cinema.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of a dark ending to
Totally.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
I mean, obviously we get Luke falling and it's getting saved, but it's still like it's bittersweet. Like,
yeah, can you guys explain to me how that save works? He falls down this endless pit and just somehow conveniently lands in a tube. Does he get sucked in? Does he force
he like
himself in?
woo. I don't know. It's weird. It's a fun slip and slide.
That's what it seems like.
yeah. I always
Yeah.
took it as like a force thing of him guiding himself where he's fallen, but
Yeah, that's how I read it this one. I'm like, he must have.
I
'Cause he,
hope so,
obviously,
'cause-
he obviously knows. He just jumps off and he's like,
yeah.
he's putting bets on himself. So,
So before we move on, can we just talk about, not like, obviously it's been joked about in I think in the Family Guy one and other people online, the fact that like Lando just steals Han Solo's clothes. Like the very next scene, do you guys know this?
No, I don't even
No,
pay attention
That
to what he's
in
wearing.
the whole final thing, they gets in the Millennium Falcon, saves Luke, and like the very next scene, he's wearing Han Solo's like shirt and vest. He's just like taken. He's just like, yeah. It's not even like the next day. It's like he's just got. He's like, I'm Han Solo now, in case they don't re-sign Harrison Ford.
it's identity theft. He's just like, oh, Han's gone. I can get with
Like,
that hot princess
like,
chick.
Leia,
Yeah, because he clearly likes her throughout.
it's me,
Yeah.
Han. But
you remember your friend, huh?
what? What's wrong, Chewie? It's me. Yeah, no, it's pretty strange, but yeah, I think like this is easily my favorite of the original trilogy. I think it's peak Star Wars for me.
Yeah.
So
for sure, and speaks to it that Lucas didn't direct it, but I can't harp on about this enough. Lucas shouldn't be directing Star Wars films.
yeah.
All right, Return of the Jedi.
Let's do it.
All right, Luke Skywalker battles Jabba the Hutt and Darth Vader to save his comrades in the Rebel Alliance and triumph over the Galactic Empire. Han Solo and Princess Leia reaffirm their love and team with Chewbacca, Lando Calrissian, the Ewoks, and droid C-3PO and R2-D2 to aid in the disruption of the dark side and the defeat of the evil Emperor. What do we think of this film?
Griner, you're the Star Wars guy.
Look, I don't hate this film. I think it's the weakest of the three, obviously. I think he gets really silly in this movie. Like the Ewoks, there's a lot of Ewok stuff that's really bad. Like it's just not that great. It's a weird thing to do, like to have them included in this fight, and then to have them be so over the top and so slapstick really sticks out like a sore thumb. To go back to the well and having another Death Star kind of is pretty weak too. I'm okay with it. I've come to terms with it over time, but it's not my favorite thing in the world.
Years of therapy got you here.
Yeah.
That's good.
the Ewok. There's lots of songs in this one, and they're all bad. The Ewok song, the original Ewok song is bad. The new Ewok song is bad. The original Jabba the Hutt pink, freaky looking frog thing. Oh, terrible.
Yeah, this is the same where there's that literally dumb song. Is it like the three dancers who
Yeah.
I wanted to punch my TV when I was watching that scene. I was like, what the hell is this doing here? It's so bad.
So this is the scene. This is the movie I feel like they're the worst with CGI stuff. And a lot of it's Jabba's palace. Like a lot of it is in there. There's so much stuff that just it bothers me, and it was making me angry. Like you said, Conan, I just wanted to punch your TV. I went on a rant in my notes. I'm just like, these movies have been ruined by George Lucas. Like, stop messing with it. Stop putting stupid CGI characters in front of the screen. Like, you compare the original Jabba's palace scene to the new one. Yeah, there was this lady singing, and she was singing a different song that kind of seemed alien. This seems like it seems very Disney. Like, it seems like this Disney song, and you have this stupid CGI alien with these big red lips, and they put her right up in front of the camera. Like, it's just like staring you dead in the eyes, like blowing your kisses. You have the other CGI like cockroach dude with a big nose. It's like and then like and then she starts singing, and it goes for like a minute or two. It's way worse than what was in there originally. It stands so much out.
Yeah, the pink alien was like in the original one. It just didn't look as animated, I suppose. But it's so the like original song is the original song I think is bad too. But it's kind of like seedy and gross. Whereas
it fits Jabba's palace. This one does not fit something that Jabba the Hutt, crime lord of Mos Eisley, is listening to. Like it's just
bad.
Does not fit at all. I feel like the Sarlacc isn't as threatening now. They put this little bird beak penis looking thing sticking out of the middle of it. Like, have you guys seen the original shot?
Was that not in? No, I haven't. I didn't know that wasn't in.
The old one, it was basically the teeth on the sides around this circle, and like they fell into this hole, and it like was munching in basically. Now they put that thing there in the middle, which is fine, but I think when you look at the original compared to it, it stands so much out as like this weird like thing that's like.
I always thought the beak was very strange. It was like you've got this giant hole like a worm. I don't know why it needs a beak. But...
That's because then what are the teeth on the outside of the beak?
It's
like got this beak in the middle, and then all these teeth surrounding this hole in the ground. Well, it's literally like a hole in the ground with teeth in the original one. It's much more threatening. I feel like you don't want to fall into it. Instead of a parrot eating you. But still, Jabba's palace, like I still love the opening of this movie.
Yeah.
If that bloody singing wasn't in there with these CGI characters, it would really be a great opening act to this film. Luke's introduction, the introduction of the green lightsaber, Luke in his new outfit, like he's a Jedi now. Like it feels, he's completed his arc almost. Like he's come around and now he is a Jedi Knight or whatever. And saving Han Solo and like having this whole plan that everyone's broken in, and or as you got Lando there as a guard, you got Leia dressed up in this alien outfit who's bartering with Chewbacca, the Wookiee prisoner, and it's like it's great. I love all this scene.
Yeah, I do kind of wish that Luke was his plan was a bit better. I would have just liked to see like a full-on raid on the palace, because he kind of gets caught and thrown in the pit, and then he's like,
he does.
What do I do? I'm like, I kind of wish he just walked in and like had known that was going to happen, just kills everybody. Obviously, it's trying to go for that fun adventure, which you can't, but because Luke feels a lot cooler when he walks in. He's in all black.
Yeah,
he has a real confidence about it. And it's like, and he mind tricks the guard when he walks in. It's like, okay, he's dope now. And then it's just
gets put down the hole.
Yeah, Jabba's like, ha ha ha. I need to talk about Jabba.
Stood on my death trap.
Yeah, it's pretty cheesy.
Mr. Burns.
A little to the left.
Yeah.
Why is anyone in the universe afraid of the Hutts? Can you guys explain to me how they ever became crime lords? They're slugs that can't move. They can't defend themselves. Like Leia just gets a chain and he just kind of sits there and goes,
and his tail flaps around. It's really gross.
Like, why are they powerful? Why are people working for them?
I always looked at it as like these like mafia don bosses who are like these
Yeah,
big Italian, like that
'cause-
they've got power, but I guess they could beat people up. But
That's it, they've actually killed people. You know that they've like been scrapping before they were bosses.
yeah,
They were doing hits for the mob. What was Jabba doing when he's a little slug, like swimming up people's sewers and killing them?
it's like I think like there's stuff they go into it a bit in Book of Boba Fett. Like the huts are like it's like this family thing. Like you don't want to
yeah.
mess with the huts. It's like they're a family crime organization that
Mm.
rule over these places and stuff like that, and their name strikes fear. But yeah, Leia takes him out pretty easily with a chain. Like it
Yeah.
took one of his slaves 2 seconds to wipe him out, but still.
So the huts are a name, they're not the species.
Basically, like I think the hut is like that family. Like
Oh, okay. I was assuming it was because
yep,
I
you
know
have Bubba the Hut somewhere, and like
right and yeah, okay. Because I remember in the game, Knights of the Old Republic, there's another like slug creature, and I assume
yeah.
that was a hut. Um,
Not
I
from
can't.
what I'm understanding. There's characters in Book of Boba Fett.
Mm,
They're referred to as the Huts, but they're related to Jabba.
okay.
Not to
Well,
spoil too much, but
yeah. Well, that raises more questions because in the game, the giant slug thing is also a crime lord. So I'm like, it's just a special thing. Why is this species of slugs powerful?
every member of this species is a crime lord
Like what?
on a
Yeah.
different planet.
And like, what about them? Is everyone's like, oh, we better work for those dudes? They're big.
They're
It's-
big. They'll roll over me
I
at
always
1 kilometer an hour.
every time I watch this, I'm like, why is anyone working for this dude? They
Give
can just feel like jump. Yeah.
give
Anyway.
Disney enough time, and they'll give you an origin series, and then you'll know what's up.
Yeah, they
But
will.
I think honestly, I think it might be based on the Harkonnens in Dune. So Baron Harkonnen is this grotesquely huge dude who can't even
Yeah.
move around because of his weight, but he's like in charge of a hugely powerful empire, and there's sandworms here and stuff. So there's a lot of influence there.
That makes a lot more sense. You can tell with the Sarlacc, it's definitely a sandworm
Yeah,
homage. Yeah, okay, that makes a bit more sense, I guess.
I
So
suspect
wait,
that's
is
where he
Star
got it
Wars
from.
after Dune?
Yes, the Dune novels.
Yeah.
Dune novels in
Wow.
like 56 or 1960 or something like that. So
Wow. Okay, cool. That's
Mm.
yeah, I thought the influence was the other way around.
no, it's huge influence for these films, particularly Tatooine. So
Yeah, no. No, that's fascinating.
Yeah. I like there's a really nice sense in it being the third film, like that they go back to Tatooine, and even Jabba's palace is kind of like it's the cantina again.
yeah,
Like it's kind of got that vibe, and so they're rehashing that. And even with the Death Star too, like it's a good conclusion to the trilogy. They go back to where it all started. But it's all different enough a little bit that again, it's like it's not completely old. It's not just like retreading the same ground, but it's definitely like, look how far Luke's come now. He's back on Tatooine, but he's boss. Look how everything's changed.
yep.
So
He's not a little
I
farm boy anymore.
no,
No.
Do
he's
you think
farming.
do you think he went back and saw the grave of his aunt and uncle? Nah,
He
probably not.
truly He's just like, hey, that place over there, my old home, that's where I used to shoot swamp rats. Like doesn't remember Uncle Owen anymore. We never hear
Nah.
about them anymore.
No. I think he paves over it and builds a new palace for himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just so obviously they really destroy all the coolness of Boba Fett, I feel like, in this whole scene.
Can we talk about his scene? What does he do, Luke?
So, okay, he sees stuff's going on. He initiates his jetpack, flies over there, gets knocked down by Luke, gets up, ties Luke up with a thing. Blind Han Solo goes, Boba Fett, where? Turns around, bumps into him, sends him flying into a wall where he flies in the background of a shot, going, flailing his arms, hits a wall, rolls down, and gets eaten by the Sarlacc.
It's the lamest thing.
It's the lamest exit for such a cool character.
The fact that Han just like bumbling bumps him, he's just
Yeah.
like, what?
It doesn't
Where?
even. He's just like Boba Fett. Where's Boba Fett? It
Yeah.
turns and bumps into his jetpack that makes it malfunction or something. Oh, it's not cool.
This scene on these flying ships reminded me of like Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like Jack Sparrow just stumbling around and making things happen for himself. Like it all just feels really silly. And yeah, Boba Fett is he's got a jetpack.
Nothing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
For a second.
Yeah, it would be if you use it properly.
Yeah.
And
Moron.
it flew him into a wall. we touched on before we started recording, but Lando's scream is hilarious to me. Every time I watch it, I can't just not laugh when the Sarlacc grabs his leg. He's just like, yeah, just yells, yeah. But
Oh.
and that's the thing. There's little stuff they edited in this that you don't fully understand until you like watch side by side comparisons. Um, like with Han being blind and like shooting when Lando's captured, they changed the line of dialogue that he says in that. And there's a few other scenes that they change the line, and I feel like they make it worse. Like I don't know. Like in the original, it's something he's like, "You're blind," and he's like, "It'll be fine. I'm a good shot." Or some he says something that's like witty, like, "Don't worry, I got this."
Mm.
And the new one now is like, "It's fine. I can see much better now." Like it's
Oh,
like
yeah,
it takes away any sarcastic like
yeah.
or anything. It's just like, "Don't worry, I can see good now." And it's there's one other line as well. I'll just touch on when R2D2 falls into the swamp at Dagobah, or he's going to get eaten by that thing, and he comes out. The original line is Luke says something like, "Oh, you're lucky you don't taste good," or something like that. And then what they edited is literally like, "Oh, you're lucky you got out of there," or like, "Lucky you didn't eat." It's like it's just like the most basic like
Yeah.
line from like a screenplay or something. It's like
Yeah, I
it's
wonder.
really weird. It's interesting. I'll send you links later of what little
Yeah.
lines of dialogue they just dubbed over with a new one, and I'm like, "Why?"
There's,
Like,
yeah,
what
there's
was the point of that?
there's things like the script changes I don't understand. Like the effects, I get why he thought they were a good idea, but
Yep.
script changing and stuff, I'm like, I do not understand why you would like tamper with that. There's no lines that are clearly bad in the originals. There's never a moment where it's like that line doesn't even make sense. They're all passable at the least.
It's just
But he edits them, yeah,
perfectionism where he's just like, "I don't get it. I don't get it."
but
Obviously
weird
it's like he doesn't
perfectionism as well.
understand that people love these movies as they were. Like nobody was
yeah.
asking for these changes.
Yeah.
No.
I'd
No.
love to tap into his brain and just see like what, like I feel like it's some sort of, like you said before, like he's just going a bit mad and it's like his desperate attempt to reclaim something where he's like, this is me.
Yep.
It's like I don't know why
I
there's
wanted that line originally, and everyone disagreed with me, and they're all dead now.
yeah.
I'm gonna go back and change that line to
Like
what I wanted.
yeah, I wonder if it's just that or it's like these weird megalomaniac like ideas or he's like, no, I am the god who made this world. I will smite it as I see fit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, why, man? You have a fandom. People love these original things. Like, no one was out there saying we need more CGI. Like,
No.
'cause I'm seeing this as well. You get the Emperor change. What do you guys think of that? The editing the new Emperor's face into it.
Grana.
I like the old effect is weird and creepy and like kind of has this, it's kind of cool. Like it's very otherworldly and you're never sure, is this a human or is it? And
Mm,
now obviously it's just, what's his,
Lance McDonald, is it?
yeah.
sure, let's go with that.
I'll look it up.
Yeah,
But
I'm
yeah,
just
it's
looking it up
just,
as
I
well.
don't know.
Ian
There's
Ian Ian
even,
McDiarmid.
McDermott.
yeah,
Ian
McDermott.
McDiarmid. Yeah.
unnecessary.
Like I get this is probably one of the ones that I don't have an issue with it. Like
Mm.
I don't think it's necessary, but it does kind of have like the continuity thing of it where it's like kind of fits. I don't feel like it's too distracting. I feel like if someone was to watch this without the knowledge of previous, they were like, "Oh, like they had the same guy like through all of them or whatever." Like
Yeah.
I don't feel it's distracting. It's not this big bloody big lipped alien like singing right in front of the screen. Like it's just pasted over everybody else. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's too distracting.
Yeah.
So I don't have too much of an issue with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not distracting at all. There's never a moment where it takes you out of it. It's just oh
I
no,
s-
we'll compare it to the Hayden Christensen thing because it is just like a choice. It's like it's reneging. What's the word? It's like editing backwards. It's
Retcon, yeah.
retconning. Yeah, it's retconning that. And I'm like, because I agree, the original effect is a lot better. It's a lot sort of more just like weird and just kind of creepy. Like this is unsettling, whereas this was just like,
so
okay, it's just a normal emperor dude.
I
But
saw a lot of discussion around it. Obviously, I feel like the old one looked weird. Like it was like looked a lot weirder and like
because it's his eyes, he's got these weird
yeah,
eyes.
They
Yeah.
used like a chimpanzee face or something. I can't remember
yeah,
exactly what it
yeah.
was, but it's something weird
No,
Oh,
like
they
that.
did.
that's
Um,
cool.
but I feel like the voice itself, like the original voice, I saw a lot of conversations around it about people being like, it wasn't like that. Like, oh, this person's pure evil. Like his voice, it was kind of like oh, this guy's like, a politician or like the emperor. Is he evil or what's this? And obviously with Ian McDermott's Palpatine, it's like, no, he's pure evil. Like, listen to his voice. Like, he's
Yeah.
like the way he talks and his inflections. He's just an evil, bad, big villain guy. But yeah, I don't know. Speaking of edits though, that I do disagree with and that I find ridiculous, like Darth Vader's nose, like saying, oh, not his actual nose, him saying no, him
No.
yelling no, during the
So
whole
lame. It's so
scene. Like, you watch it, and you watch the original, and it's like this suffering in silence thing of watching his son. He's torn, like what to do, suffering in silence, watching this happen, and then just like no, grabs him and throws him.
yeah.
It's so much more impactful than him standing there going, no, 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 and grab. It's like cheesy. That now that scene's cheesy by him
Yeah.
doing that, and it
And again,
wasn't originally. And it's like, why ruin it?
yeah, it's like with all the dubs, it very clearly says, like, we can tell that he's saying no when he throws the Emperor over the edge. We don't need him to say no. Like,
Ugh.
why not just say, I disagree with what you're doing? Like, it's it's
I
a
will
perfect
stop
moment.
you.
It's a perfect moment without it, where he's just like, he does it, you see action. That's the whole
Yeah.
point of film. You see him do the actions, like, cool, I know that he was upset. But there's
Yeah.
just this, it's bad
So,
choice.
Ewoks. Grana, what's your opinion on the Ewoks?
Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Does anyone in
What?
the world like the Ewoks?
No.
Children.
And I think the people who played them were treated pretty poorly, is my understanding as well. Like, I think that the whole
Oh.
situation with them is just bad. Like, shouldn't have been done. Wasn't great. They
It's
don't add much.
like
No.
they're little teddy bears that they feel very slapstick,
Oh,
and
it's
like the
woeful.
way they take down these big machines, like with logs coming in and smashing in between stuff, like it's like it makes the Empire look stupid.
Yeah.
And I feel like it turns the fight from rebels against the Empire to Ewoks against the Empire. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I remember the rebels fighting on Endor against the Empire anymore. Like, that
Mm.
battle on Endor, you say Endor, it's like the Ewoks against the Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And watching these little teddy bears, I don't have personal stakes in that. It's not like the rebels fighting for humanity to save, like, people, basically. It's
Yeah.
Ewoks, like, doing these funny things to take down the things. Like, it's just, yeah.
The whole like
Because-
subplot of C-3PO becoming their god, and it's so stupid. It's so bad. I hate it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's
Yeah.
obviously it's trying to bring in sort of like that kind of like environmentalist thing of like, oh, these old school tribes, or like that sense of like the classic tribe that has been untouched, that still is in touch with nature, is defeating these artificial machines, right? It's that real sense of
Yeah.
nature versus these mechanical things have lost their humanity and they're reclaiming it. But it's just so, like, the narrative is fine on a different film. It doesn't need to be here. It feels so out of place. It's like there's never been anything hinting at like the technology of the galaxy is problematic.
No, it's not like
Like, there's
it's,
never a sense of like, machines are detrimental. There's never a sense of, oh, planets are dying because of mining. Like, it's not a part of this universe. But then there's this weird like, they've been felled by the one thing they destroyed, nature.
The thing,
Why?
it ain't no bloody Ents marching on Isengard, like
No.
Yeah.
industrialization against like nature. That film, it fits in that. This is not that story to tell when
Yeah.
they're then hopping in a spaceship and flying to another planet. Like, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
it's not the thing for that, while there's a Death
Yeah.
Star floating out there. But
And just
and obviously, they do another Death Star, and I feel like it's just so much like, we did that in the first one. Let's do that again, because that's a cool way to send this off. I feel like, but
I'm okay with the Death Star. Like what I said before,
Yeah.
it's a throwback to the original. It ends where it starts, and it's kind of cool having it half built. But it's like, but it
Yeah.
is still it's still
it looks cool. It looks cool
operational.
being half
Yeah,
built.
really cool aesthetic.
I mean, where do
And
you go from a planet that can destroy other planets though? Like, how do you one up that? It's really hard to
They do. We'll get to that in 2 podcast time.
But I don't
Star
know
killer
that I
base.
don't know that
A
they do it
solar
as well.
system.
So
They take out a
Yeah.
solar system at once. I
Have
don't
you
know.
guys
We'll get into that when we talk about
we
that
will.
film.
have you guys seen Clerks?
No.
No.
There's a very infamous discussion in there where they talk about Return of the Jedi and how killing the original Death Star, right, is okay because everyone on there is evil. They're working for the Empire. But in a half-built Death Star, you've got laborers, tradesmen, engineers, mechanics. You've got people you've just got people going to work for the day. And so they have this long discussion where they're like, they're rebel. Like, it's a really bad thing they do. They actually commit almost like, this mass
Genocide.
innocent genocide of just
Yep.
workers. People with their families probably there on like a 6-month working contract.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, that's a lot of problematic stuff that people just don't anticipate.
Especially because, like, it seems like the Empire in this universe is like the government. Like,
Well, it is.
like the Republic's been taken out. Like, stormtroopers are the police in these places. So
Yeah,
people, like, you can't just assume that every stormtrooper is pure evil when it's like people just working like, oh, I'm going to join the military. They're joining the Empire. It's just these rebel scum that come and destroy them all. Something that we didn't touch on in the first film, but it's relevant for all three films. It's so hilarious to me that in the first film, the first thing they talk about with stormtroopers is how, like, only Imperial stormtroopers could be so precise with this shooting. And then literally, you don't see a stormtrooper shoot anything for the
No.
next three films. It's kind of like, obviously, it's a meme now, all these years later. But
Yep.
watching it again, it's literally like they can't shoot shit.
No.
Like, there's all these scenes of Luke standing there in the doorway shooting back at them, and there's like 50 stormtroopers, and there's bullets flying everywhere. They can't hit shit at all. And then Luke takes them out, like, by shooting them one at a time. Like, they're not very trained.
They're definitely just fodder. Like, it does really stand out how little impact they have in any fight. Any fight that they're involved in, they do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And like, I have heard people say, "Oh, it's because the Empire's in decline." These aren't the original clones that they had. They're recruits, and they're not as good. But it still doesn't make sense that none of them can shoot. It's bad.
None of them can shoot, but Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia can shoot better than
Just
them.
fine.
Yeah, these well-trained soldiers. I mean, it's okay for most of it because it's like, again, this film's it's kind of like a light-hearted adventure. If you take it into a serious direction, it really falls apart.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, this film goes too far the other way. You can really smell that, like the merchandising and the family,
100%.
and you can tell like there's specials in the works. And like, okay, we can do something big here, and they're just really going away from like what's important. It's like, no, you can have teddy bears now, and this fun adventure where they're all playing a song with
I mean, I was just reading on Wikipedia earlier, like Kurtz wanted a bittersweet and nuanced ending outlined with Lucas that not only saw Han dead, but also depicted the rebel forces in pieces, Leia struggling as a queen, and Luke walking off alone. While Lucas wanted a happier ending, partly to encourage toy sales. It's just like that. Just tells the whole story, doesn't it?
That's so sad, man.
Truly.
What happened to storytelling?
How good would that have been? Han dead, Luke alone as like the wandering warrior.
Yeah.
Wandering Jedi, and Leia struggling with like politics and being a queen. I mean, now she's lost her man.
It's almost the situation that we pick up on in the next trilogy, like in the sequel trilogy to this one. That's basically where they take it. But
yeah, because that's kind of thing. These films are always like good overcoming evil. And they always start with like a dire situation and just the aspiration for good and for restoring balance. And balance is a big theme in the whole universe, right? The dark and the light is always, it's never meant to be one or the other. It's always meant to be a struggle.
Yeah. And
so there is always that sense of it starts dark and then it's rebalancing it to goodness mostly, but they're working together. And the Jedi has that tonal issue of everyone is just too damn happy. It's just too damn friendly.
Yeah.
And too damn like how great is it that teddy bears could defeat this thing? Like, it just makes you lose any sort of, like, were they, like you said before, Luke, it's like there's no stakes. Like, were they ever evil, or are they just idiots who their machines can't beat sticks? Like,
or rocks, or just
which is a shame because the first half of this film is so good. Besides the bad singing, but like the whole part back on Tatooine is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think the film, it's really let down by the second half and the Ewok battles.
You got Yoda passing obviously in this one. And the whole thing, obviously we find out Luke and Leia, brother and sister.
Yeah, I want to know what the thoughts were there. Did he ever intend this to happen? Was that kiss just
You wouldn't think
unlucky
they'd that kiss in with, I don't know, maybe.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know what he was thinking because it's like even Darth Vader being his father wasn't the plan from the first film. Like, it's definitely written on the fly. Somehow it works pretty well overall, but there's definitely a few things like that just like don't work so well.
Even like when Luke's like, "You lied to me. You said my father is dead," and he's like, "Technically, I didn't lie, because
Yes.
Darth Vader, the
He's like-
Anakin as I knew, died when
Yeah, he's
Darth
like,
Vader.
Darth Vader killed your father.
So technically, when I told you that, I was telling the truth. Actually, I didn't lie to you, Luke. Don't give me the attitude.
Yeah.
And then obviously, yeah, we get the celebration. The Death Star dies. We get. It was just originally the Ewok celebration. Now we get 5 or 6 different planets that are all like bad
Yeah.
CGI, and of course we
Yeah.
get Jar
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 Binks'
Binks.
people going, "We are free!" And it's like, oh, I don't want that in this celebration.
No.
And we got that planet. We got all the other people like badly CGI celebrating.
I wonder how do they know that they're free? Like, does every planet have a live stream?
Yeah, they watched it on YouTube.
Like, did Darth Vader update before he dies? Is like
there's a
just letting you know, Emperor is dead.
Book status.
There's
Yeah.
a strong,
Change of heart.
there's a strong
boy.
journalism sector in Star Wars.
The rebels prioritize 2 things: rebelling and journalism.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the thing. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's weird that happens. There's the whole Ewok thing, and then obviously we get what Conan was touched on earlier, Hayden Christensen.
As a Force
Think
ghost.
about the internal logic of this. Luke has never seen young Darth Vader. He only knows Darth Vader or his father, Anakin, as Sebastian Shaw, like as an old, bald, dying man. And so he's just looking here. Alex Guinness is still there, looking old. Yoda's still old. And for some reason, there's this young dude there, and he's just like, and yeah, he's like, my dad. Like, what the hell?
What? Like, it bothers me as well that like they literally, it's still Sebastian Shaw's body.
Yeah, it's
like,
just that
body. They thinned it down, and they've got Hayden Christensen's head from a costume video when he was trying on a costume, and he's just standing there like looking up and smiling at him. He doesn't look at the people that like the Force ghosts that are with him. He's just there standing there, and they've put his head over the body, and it's like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Like, what does it like?
I think part of the idea is it's like, oh, this is Anakin, right? Like this is Luke's father, but it takes away from the redeeming at the end, where Darth Vader decides to stand up and become Luke's father again, I guess. But
then he's bad. Anakin again. He becomes Anakin then, and it's like you have that moment with this thing, and it's touching, and he dies in his arm, and that like they burn him, and then he shows up, and it's not him anymore. He's de-aged. He's like, oh shit, yeah, I got my whole body back.
It's so egregious.
Again.
It's egregious because Sebastian Shaw in the original final scene, like he's got a really nice smile. It's like it's really kind of warming. It's like, oh,
he doesn't look like Darth Vader. He doesn't have all like the imperfections.
It's really, really sort of beautiful to have that moment. It's like, oh, he has come around, and just it's so frustrating, that part.
I remember not knowing that they'd done that, like because I obviously seen the original like back when they had Sebastian Shaw there, and I remember just sitting there when it would have been the Blu-rays come out, and you're sitting there being like, what the fuck? Like, why is Hayden Christensen there? I was like, what's going on? Like, this is really weird. I don't know what's going on. When did they do this? And Luke, it's just like Luke awkwardly smiles like, yeah, that's my dad when he was younger than me.
I had the same thought because I saw it again. Same deal after the prequels, and I remember thinking at first like, they must have had really good foresight to know that they were going to get a young dude. Like, I was like, it must have just looked a lot like. I just assumed it was a lookalike, or like this guy who they got Hayden Christensen based off this performance. Like, wow, they really look similar. That's great casting, but give him too much credit.
Don't like it at all. Don't
Terrible.
like it one bit. And does it disservice to like Sebastian Shaw? Like they're erasing people from this shit, and it's just I don't know.
Yeah,
it's the same as Boba Fett. Like there's these people who, though they were those characters for 30 years, they were going to conventions like, I'm Boba Fett, and you know what? Completely edited it out. They don't exist there anymore. Like
you're right. Like the original Boba Fett doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, it's kind of nuts to think about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, despite all that, I think the ending scene is really, like, the party scene is really emotional. Even watching it again, I'm like, oh, it's a really nice scene. Like, the Ewoks all celebrate, and they kind of have their moment where Luke and Han and Leia all hug, and it's like, oh, I don't know. It's warm and fuzzy. I still get warm and fuzzies despite all the problematic things.
It's nice to have all the family together.
Yeah.
But,
because that's what this trilogy is, right? Like, that's one of the reasons why there's such, like, a long-lasting film. That they've just got a really good sense of friendship and family, and like, even though a lot of them are family, which is kind of creepy, It's that
I mean,
found
that's
family.
what we'll get into in other the other episodes where it's like everything is around this bloodline.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Yeah.
no one else can exist outside of this.
Which is
binary.
frustrating because part of the magic is like the found family. You have Han come in and he becomes a lover to Leia and a brother to Luke, and it's like, I guess you feel that. Like again, Chewie's like the lovable uncle who can't really talk, but everyone still thinks he's funny.
Yeah.
It's got a good payoff. Like they hit the emotional beats in these films really well, even when a lot of other stuff doesn't stand up. They can still nail it.
Yeah. But yeah, I like if we talk, I easily think this is the worst, like Grana said, of the original trilogy. I have it
Yep.
Empire, New Hope, Return of the Jedi. Yeah. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I don't think it's up. Yeah, no, sorry, I do think it's a bit of a debate. I can see why people would like New Hope more.
Yeah.
But on this rewatch, especially, I was like, Empire Strikes Back is tops.
Yeah.
It's
Very, very good. Really
Yeah.
defined how to do a middle film in a trilogy, I think, because often they're so weak. But
yeah,
obviously
it's
the strongest one
fascinating. Yeah, it doesn't happen much.
Before we forget, Dennis Franz, but not Jabba the Hutt.
here.
Oh, I want him to be Jabba the Hutt.
Who do you cast him as?
Grand Moff Tarkin. Put him as one of the real bad guys.
You're like a beat cop. He turned out this like Chicago beat cop thing with Darth Vader.
I'll tell you, a stormtrooper takes his helmet off. He's like, "Oh, what's happened here?"
Yeah.
Uncle Owen, maybe.
Yeah, Uncle Owen's works.
Yeah.
Just gets
Yeah.
only one
Uncle
film deal.
Owen.
Or just any of the pilots. Like all the pilots in this are this like middle-aged,
Yeah, they are.
pretty heavy set men,
Wedge and
which always makes me laugh.
Biggs. Yeah.
Porkins and
Yeah.
yeah.
Just make every pilot Dennis Franz.
Yeah. With different facial hair.
Just slightly different.
He's one big family. They're the pilot family. He's just
He's got-
populating the whole rebel
Yep.
fleet.
Yeah, the Hutts do crimes and the
The Francis do.
they do
Piloting.
Oh.
Admiral Akbar's tops too.
I don't,
It's a trap.
he's a terrible character.
Such a meme.
No way. He's great. He's a squid man.
He's so dumb. And yeah, just it's a trap. Yes, we know that.
Just one line I just have to mention. I just cracks me up. Like Luke, when they're talking about the original Death Star, and like we can't hit that. It's this tiny little weakness, and obviously it's this such a what do you call it? MacGuffin or whatever. Like it's this small thing. They can just shoot this little point and it'll destroy it all. And Luke's like, no, we can. I used to shoot swamp rats with just my BB gun. Like, I can destroy this whole ship by shooting it flying at a high speed. Of course I can. It's the same thing.
Yep.
Thanks, farm boy. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm a pilot in the war. Yeah,
maybe there was an environmental message in this from the beginning that farmers are the ones who save the world.
Yeah,
I'm coming around.
He didn't even want to be a farmer though. He's like, oh, not one more harvest. Everyone's already left off world, Dad. That's why he doesn't care when his dad gets disintegrated, man. He's like, no, screw you.
Uncle Owen's a little bit of a dick to him. He's just like, I want to see my friends. He's like, no, you're staying here to harvest. Oh, come on, man. You live on a desert planet. Give the kid a break. Works into his own.
He knows that his father was like a mass murderer that murdered hundreds of people.
Does he know that? So, I don't know. That trying to dissect.
Yeah, we'll get to that to the next podcast. We'll get to that to the next podcast. Yeah. I guess
so.
Because it's at the end of that one. Yeah. Joel Edgerton.
All right.
Yeah. So real quick, I just have a question. Do you guys, if you had to pick the complete unedited, unchanged Star Wars, or take it with all the edits now, which would you take? Because there are some effects
unedited.
That are entirely unedited.
Easily.
Yeah, unedited.
Yep.
I think that you're right. There are some effects that do add to it, but I think they're few and far between, and the amount that subtracts from it is way more. It's just
because you can take it as a capsule in time and be like, look, this movie is 50 years old. Like, of course, it's not going to look that great. But when you put CGI in from early 2000s over the top of it, there's a weird contrast where all of a sudden it's like, that should look better. Like, the CGI looks worse than the Muppet characters in the background, like the physical effect ones. Like, it literally looks worse. And obviously, early 2000s, they were like, this looks amazing, but it doesn't. And it stands out so much. And it really bothered me watching these again that I feel like it's such a hindrance to these films, and
Yeah.
does them a discredit.
The other annoying thing is, I was watching it like, man, these ships like flying through look so good. And I'm like, but did they touch that up? Like, am I proud of this because it was done so well back in 1977, or
Yeah.
am I just succumbing to the small effects that they did, and these are the actual good ones that aren't standing out? And like, just
That's
I don't know, it messes with your expectations. You're right.
yeah, that's very true. Because there are some effects that they look better, and don't know if I'm. You can't appreciate the. I see. You don't even know. Are you appreciating the original? Are you appreciating something new?
Mm.
There's some good comparisons on YouTube. I've seen that what it feels like. A lot of the ship effects were pretty good back in the day. It seems
No,
like
they definitely
what they
were. Yeah.
did. It seems like what they did was just add more ships in. Like there's
Yeah,
certain scenes where like they're being chased, and they just added like 4 more in there with them,
yeah.
like
And
shooting
there's
the
a
same
bunch of
things.
things
Like
like you'll see a part where like 3 ships just move in a line, and then they add it in so they kind of like spiral around in a formation. And it's
yeah,
like it looks a bit cooler,
and
but it also looked perfectly fine before that.
Mm.
but there's a bunch of times as well where you see the same shot like 2 or 3 times. Like it'll
Yeah,
be like a ship like in like a chase scene, and
yeah.
then like 4 seconds later it's the same shot again. Like they just keep using the same thing. Um, oh, there was something I wanted to touch on just then that just reminded me of it, but I've forgotten now. There's something anyway. Oh well, it's gone.
All right. The other question I just wanted to ask is, if you imagine you saw just these 3 films, would you want to be like, "Man, I need to know what happened before this, and I need to know what happens after"? Or would you then, and I mean, do you now, do you think it would have been better just leave it as this trilogy? 'Cause we're
If
obviously
Well,
we're facing a time of too
I
much Star
mean,
Wars.
foresight's a thing.
Yep.
Does if we want to know it before, does it mean we have to get what the prequels are? Because it's like I don't know. If we could have got 3 more Empire Strikes Back quality movies, then I don't know. But I always wanted a sequel. Like I was always super keen to see what happened after that and to know what these characters I loved. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
there's also something very intriguing about that opening crawl. Like, it sets up a universe. There's obviously things that have happened that
Yep.
you obviously didn't get to see until they make the prequels. And so I think
Yeah,
that there's something in that to be like, I want to actually experience that rather than just reading this crawl. So
I feel
Yeah.
like we'll get into it when we discuss the prequels. It's like a weird thing where it's like this is set 50 years before them, but it feels like it's way further in the future. Like it feels
Yeah.
like everything's way more advanced. Like Jedi battles are way more like crazy, and like everyone's got, and obviously there's
lightsabers have two
story
ends.
reasons.
Yeah.
Like
That's
it's yeah, because that's what the technology at the time was, but it
yeah.
doesn't suit as a prequel.
Mm.
But yeah,
That's part of the reason, like, that I ask it, and, like, thinking about the whole, does this need to be, or does this deserve to be a trilogy? Well, I think it yeah, the prequels become really disjointing. Like, that lightsaber fight in the first one looks terrible compared to the Darth Maul fight scene.
Yeah.
And it's
yep,
like, yeah, what happened? Did everyone lose the ability to? Like, and all the droids look a lot stranger when it's like we've seen how good they are. Why do they now look weird and hokey? And I like you said, foresight is hindsight's a big thing. I don't really know what my expectations would be without it, but I'm like, this trilogy works so well as a self-contained thing. You got a great
yeah,
beginning, middle, end. You've got a great,
Yeah.
like, it is in a broader universe, so there's lots to it. But that's so much of the mystery and the magic, as we've established. Like, characters work better when they're not explained.
yeah.
And as much as I enjoyed going to the later films of the movies and experiencing them, I probably would have I feel like I would have preferred to just have these 3 things like, wow, 3 perfect films. I wonder what it could have been.
Yeah.
It's
And I
not how.
mean, like, sorry, you go, you go.
No, I'm going to close. So you better say what you want to say.
No, okay. So yeah, 2 things. I just say, I feel like, and we'll get into this in the next one. The sequel does a lot of stuff that retroactively ruins stuff in this trilogy, like stuff with the Force, midichlorians, stuff with stormtroopers and clone troopers, and Boba Fett being a clone of Django. Like we'll get into it next time. But there's a lot of stuff
Spoiling.
they add into it that I feel like brings down stuff in this. And
Yeah.
the thing I forgot a few minutes ago, I've just remembered it. Like talking about what they edited in with a few more things or whatever. There's that scene in A New Hope where Han Solo's just runs at the stormtroopers and chases them down the hallway.
Yeah.
It's really funny. Like he starts yelling, then goes into that room where there's like 200 of them.
It's
Yeah.
only like
Originally, that's
4 of
a
them.
room of like 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and then they added 500 stormtroopers in that room. But yeah,
That was a
that's
good
a funny
choice.
scene with him just chasing him down and then running back again. It's funny.
Yep.
Han Solo is great. Thing coming out of this trilogy, Harrison Ford is tops.
Absolutely.
Too right.
All right. Well, that wraps up our first podcast in our trilogy of podcasts about Star Wars. So next time we'll do the prequel trilogy followed by the sequel trilogy. You guys, I'm so keen to watch the prequel trilogy. I don't think I've seen them since I saw them in the cinemas.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to watch them. I feel like I haven't seen them in a long time.
I definitely haven't seen them since they became a meme.
Memes.
Yeah.
It might be like Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man 2, like not Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, where you just have this newfound appreciation because of the
Maybe.
memes.
I'm excited for like a revision of it because I think they've been going through a bit of that revision now.
But
where I'm curious to see what stands up.
I am keen for Ewan McGregor and Qui-Gon Jinn because they're tops.
And little Anakin speed racing.
And Darth Maul, Ray Pack, so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. Our podcast is brought to you by our very own Conan's book, A Taste of Iron.
It's here somewhere.
Someone got it there somewhere?
Yeah,
I should put mine in this room, The Taste of Iron. So pick that up on Amazon ebooks, or we have physical copies if you get in touch with us. Thank you for joining us on The Good, the Bad, and the Worst, and we'll catch you next time.
May the Force be with you.
I can't follow that up.